This is a big welcome from us at Leverage Edu. Leverage Edu is India's top-ranking university admissions service, especially focusing on study abroad. So if you're looking at a journey that will take you from India to any of your destinations that you have been dreaming of, you are right where you should be, plugged in to listen to one of our sessions. I'm Dr. Maina Chawla Singh. I have been an academic, a syllabus designer. I have taught in India, in Israel, in the United States, and have a very diverse experience of teaching at different universities. I bring to these sessions the perspective of an educator, because I have been on the other side looking at applications that go from India when you apply to those universities that you dream of, which is why many of the things I speak about regularly in my sessions are to do with what it's like on the other side to see the applications that you send from here. Today is a very special session. We have with us a professor who is our guest. So we are two of us who are academics who have looked at admission applications for a very long time, who have been in those universities and taught at those universities overseas, have taught students who are from many different parts of the world. My guest today is Professor Dr. Rohee Dasgupta. Dr. Dasgupta has had a very illustrious career. She has more than 12 years of teaching at international universities. She has taught at OP Jindal, which is India's very well-known university. She has taught in the UK at Keele University, where she also studied and did her PhD. She has been associated with universities in Israel, and she has been associated with universities in the US. She is now in Canada. So we bring her to you all the way from Ottawa. It is early morning for her, and it is evening for me. So thank you very much, Dr. Dasgupta, for joining us. We are really delighted to have you on this live session to be able to share some of the learnings of what it's like for a student who is thinking of a university in Canada. I do want to say a little bit more that Professor Dasgupta's perspective is that of a professor. She teaches currently advanced graduate courses on identity and conflict at the School of Conflict Studies at St. Paul University in Canada. She's a fellow at the Zylkowicz Center, Jewish Studies at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. And as I said to you, she has also been on multiple international research fellowships in many different parts of the world. Another very interesting thing about Dr. Dasgupta, of course, you will find her on Twitter and on LinkedIn and the other social media platforms. She also has a podcast that she has launched very recently. It's called The Outsider Narrative. And she has moved very recently to Canada. So look out for The Outsider Narrative for narratives about what it's like to be an outsider. Outsider, insider are kind of symbiotic terms. But let me come back to what is more pertinent for many of you who are logged in today to this session. So Dr. Dasgupta, thank you very, very much for being here. Let me put my first question to you. So my first question really is, if you can just point out 3 or 4 broad issues that Indian students should be aware of when they think of studying in Canada. And that can be academic, it can be about conditioning, it can be anything. We'll focus more on postgrad because most of our applicants are aiming at postgrad degrees, although that's not all the case. So over to you.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to Leverage and Dr. Singh for making these connections. I think, first of all, let me say that all of you are very lucky to have such, perspectives, whether in India or abroad, before you take your first step, something that perhaps many of us didn't have. So that's a good thing. To begin with, let me just say certain things that would be of help academically. When you're choosing a university or when you're thinking about a university program, we are all, well, I guess you're all millennials and post-millennials now. So you are born into the tech age. it's very important to see the department's website. It's a very simple thing. You will say, why? We all see websites all through the day. Yes, but it's important to see any department that you're applying to or a faculty that you're applying to about what kind of, besides the MA or the MBA or the MSc, whatever be the kind of degrees you're looking at, you need to look at the strength of the faculty, the programs, what kind of, even if you're not applying for a research or a PhD, but you're looking at what kind of faculty interests are present and whether the faculty will be supportive in nurturing your learning as well as future interests. That is the first thing. I know we go with ratings. I know we want to all go to rankings A, B, C, and they do count. I'm not going to deny that. But more importantly, I do think from an academic's perspective as well as from a learner's perspective, it's very important to see the program, the benefits beyond placement factor. Then, of course, the second would be for those who are pursuing strictly professional career routes, is to look at placements, what kind of opportunities, look at testimonials of students. But those are a little more core utilitarian thing. But before we go into the core utilitarian aspects, it's important to see the strength of the program. And of course, to look into the application process. Within the application process, it is important to state who you are, what your aim is with the program, and how do you see. We can't predict future. I mean, we are talking at a times where future is very uncertain, but still a, a vision for your career. That would be very important, whether you're coming from social science, humanities, STEM, business, doesn't matter. So, in other words, what I would encourage all students to have is your own exploratory zeal, right? You have to have that. You have to have that gut and that exploratory zeal, without which really nothing happens in life, whether you want it in India or abroad. It's life, right? And then when you put your information together, it is for you to then choose a universities. Most universities in India, in Canada, are really very well placed in their faculty. I wouldn't say, I mean, it's not that they are young universities. They could be relatively young, but at the same time, their faculty are coming from different parts of the world with different world experiences, different research experiences. So it's very competitive and it's high ranking. Canadian education system is very, very well poised and very, very well connected with all of that. Uh, but at the same time, to look at the department strength, then the university ranking, then what the program offers you, and the future potential of your project. Most of you, if you're looking at a master's program, will be looking at a dissertation or a research level paper. And that is even, and I do not always mean in theory, even in practice, you need to have a supervisor who would really advise you and put in that effort with you. And on that note, I'll switch to the word effort. It's a very loaded word, both in life, but even more so internationally. Um, One has to become independent, take their own decisions, put the effort right from laundry and right up to the Viva table and right up to the lab, right up to the placement office, careers office. That is very important. So one needs to know within the university, what are the offices, whether it's career, whether it's health, whether it's the graduate school, you need to know what their roles are. I remember when I started the journey, uh, I mean, in early 21st century, I feel really old saying that, but it's true. Um, I needed to know what was the roles of the international office, the careers office, the graduate school, the program I was going to, the key people within the program, and I remember I wrote to some of the key people, one of whom turned up to be my master supervisor in the UK. So this awareness, even before stepping on campus, at that time, few universities, not every university, few universities did start the 360 virtual campus tour. not everyone. My university had that in Kiel. But so I absolutely, by the time I went into the university, it was almost a deja vu. And that is a very important planned approach to have. The more you see, the better you observe, and then you make the connections. So
Wonderful. So, these pointers for pre-departure understandings are really helpful. And I've been thinking of doing some special sessions for pre-departure counseling. And I think this has been a good segue. If I may, I would love to now ask you to mention specifically one or two universities in Canada that you're very familiar with, any universities in Ottawa, and tell us what are their outstanding features, and if you can compare that with anything else, or maybe not compare, but just tell us about two universities that you know really well.
well, I am personally in St. Paul University, which is a sister university of University of Ottawa. We belong to the same network. And there's also Carleton University, which is also a public university, but not a part of this network. And I have affiliations with St. Paul and Carleton at the moment. I can definitely say that for MBAs, the Telfer School of Management, that is a very important school at doing interesting programs on business. But there are, Ottawa itself has a lot of interesting programs within STEM. And also branches of STEM that can be interdisciplinary. We are looking at interdisciplines now, even within the framework of program naming. So when you're looking up university program, that's an interesting point too, because we are not just anyway now doing degrees in only physics or only chemistry or only, we have branched into interdisciplines of business, of science, and that is clearly an employability factor too. Also, I would say, and interesting, because talking about Canada, as you know, the history is very layered, of course, and has an interesting colonial, well, like many countries, has colonial pasts, and certainly the New World has it all over. So there's a French influence towards Quebec and eastern parts of Ontario. The Atlantic provinces, a little more, a little mixed with English and French, but more English. And the western part of the western provinces are pretty much English. So if you're looking at, though it doesn't really affect STEM and MBAs all the time, but if you already know French, it would always be an employability factor, at least within Quebec and Ontario. But also let's understand this, that Canada is a bilingual country, at least officially, and it is a largely employability factor if you have a working proficiency of French. In the European standards, I would place it at B, at least a B level within the levels. Which it would be helpful. So the earlier, forewarned is forearmed. So if you're thinking of coming to Canada, why don't you go ahead and do French and alias français, for example? And it certainly helped me because, I mean, I had learned it much earlier. I'm just reviving it in life now. It is helpful to know French. And of course, let's not also undermine it's one of the key UN languages. So it's always useful, by the way, to know foreign languages, because beyond the employability factor, foreign languages do wonderful wonders for your mind. Having had that experience with about 5, 6 of them, I can tell you that it makes your mind twitch and twirl in the right way. And that brings a degree of cultural translatability, because you're not only going into a university, you're going into a country, you're going out in the world. And most international campuses are, well, we have a lot of people from different parts of the world. So as you mix and mingle, it's good to have Indian friends, but do mix and mingle, right? That's very, very important because it's personality building. And again, like foreign languages, it does something to your mind. You are able to understand on the shoes of the other, right?
Excellent, excellent. That is such a, I'm so glad it came up spontaneously. But the first thing I did want to emphasize is that many students would be assuming that French is not important in Canada. And we need to underscore that if it is bilingual, then knowing French is an asset, and being afraid of a foreign language is not a good idea. So thank you for
I mean,
underscoring those. I'm actually seeing some questions coming up. And one of them is, how big of an issue is it to have a 3-year bachelor degree and not a 4-year? Do I stand any chance at all to get into a master's program if I have only a 3 years bachelor degree? That's one question. I'll take a second one, and you may respond whatever you feel comfortable about. If someone does a postgrad degree in India before coming to Canada for MBA, whether the last degree is PG, will they be considered, or is it the undergrad degree that will be considered? So I think basically they're talking about the acceptability into postgrad. So any thoughts on that?
if you, I'll begin with the second question. If there is a
Yes.
previous postgraduate degree, many universities in UK, in my experience, as well as Canada, will definitely welcome it more because you are, it's not to say more or less, but will welcome you because you already have a niche interest and you presumably have done some graduate work. uh, it should also reflect in your application. Just having a degree on paper doesn't always work. It should show in your application as a result of knowing some graduate work or having done some graduate work. What do you bring to the table? What are your interests to the program? Again, linking your degree to the interests of the program. That bridge has to be made in the application, and that is always important. Now, the preference of a 3 to 4 year degree, first of all, let me say it depends on the program. For the most part, though it's North America, many universities in Canada do accept 3 year programs, but they may have a little foundation segue into the master's degree. Alternatively, they could also look into the idea of actually the 3 year degree with some internship going into the masters. So there are, these are various, but I'm saying this in mind not only with the humanities, social sciences, but STEM and MBA. But also the other part I think is the which is very important is even with a 3 or 4 year degree, it doesn't really if a program says that we need a 4 years degree, then there is no other way out but a 4 year degree. If it is a 3 year degree, then you can always, even with that 4 year hard and fast rule, reach out to the department head, to the school dean, to the potential supervisor, and with the 3 year program, what your vision is, how may you actually make the change, how what is the pathway that they are suggesting within your very niche field, right? If you have significant lab experience, that counts, for example. Again,
Excellent.
it differs from program to program. I'm talking generically here. Uh, yeah, I'll just leave it there and then I can continue as the questions come in.
Excellent. Akanksha, I hope you've got some headway into the question that you posed. Thank you, Rohee. I think, again, it's a very relevant point, and we keep talking about it, that you must look at the specifications of the program, but then you also must be enterprising. If you have done a 4-year program, I used to see some applications where the student would write and say, I've done that extra year. These are the courses I did. Is there a way of getting credits? So you can actually shorten your program. So there are ways to get around it. Use the idea of the internship. Use the idea of a research project you may have done. Use the idea of a work experience. You may have done work experience, maybe a really good internship, but you have a 3-year program and you can add that. So it doesn't hurt to be enterprising. In fact, you must be enterprising. If you want to go, well, you're already enterprising. You want to leave the familiar and go and be adventurous intellectually, socially, culturally. All of those things are a package. You want to be a global citizen, which is why you are choosing study abroad. I have another question here. and I'm going to go back to it, which says, so Akanksha, I do have I have a very specific question that you're asking again about 3 years and a CA degree. So I want to say that, we are not really giving you a brief for any one particular university. You will have to look at that program and see whether your CA degree or your BA degree or your BSc degree is acceptable. So don't hesitate, reach out and write to the program. Write to more than one person, find the faculty member who seems to be doing your kind of work, and write to them, write to the admissions office and tell them these are the reasons that you would like to explore, even though the specifics that are specified in the program are not necessarily what your CV adds up to. But say that you have the following additional possibilities that can see if they can open the door for you somewhere else. So again,
I have a
Rohee,
little something to add
yes,
here.
please, of course.
So when you are also applying to a program, do look into the YouTube video of the admissions, because for the most part, they will have a YouTube video. Besides that, which gives an introduction to the university, the various running ins, and also, a sort of a visual feel of the university. But your department will also have various conferences, webinars, seminars on YouTube. For the most part, they do, or at least a Zoom that is put live for that particular web page. Be a part of that mail list, and because potential students can become a part of, conferences and webinars mail lists that are free. And also listen a little to the potential faculty members that you would be interacting with. Many of them would be, featuring short videos about the program, but also on conferences, papers. And again, I want to stress that you don't always have to go down the PhD route for that. It's important to listen. A big part of doing a graduate program is to listen to various speakers besides your own faculty. So don't just go there and do classes and do your homework. No, you got to go to conferences. You got to go and listen to 5 different speakers from universities that are different to the ones that you're going. For example, let's say you're going to Simon Fraser or U Alberta. You need to listen to various faculty members from various universities that are coming. And that is very important. That I cannot stress how important that is. It is really, really important.
Indeed, I think these are very, very important pointers for many of our students from India, because this whole commitment about I'm going to do this degree, I'm going to get a job, what do I need to do to get a job? One of the most important things for an interview board or interview committee is how do you come across? Remember that they have people with degrees like yours lining up. So what is going to make you different? What is going to make you different is that if you have engaged in a lot of other things that make you deeper and more layered in your understandings. And we want to keep urging that. Both Dr. Dasgupta and I, with our experiences of teaching overseas, we feel this is one important pointer we want to give. Come out of your comfort zone, not just by going to Canada. Please do think of your international exposure as exposure. You are going there to imbibe, not just pack away a degree. That degree will not mean very much when you're looking for a job. If you're planning a startup, you're planning a business of your own, the more you know outside of your degree, the more your chances of being more successful. So I do want to also now say a little bit about this. A lot of students have this dream, maybe I won't come back, I'm just going to be settling there and so on and so forth. Of course, they may not say it right away, and that's not the way to put things down for a university. But Dr. Dasgupta, you have recently made that journey and got permanent residency in Canada. You were a professor at OP Jindal University with a fabulous job, and you have chosen to go. What would you like to say to students, not yourself, but students who might aspire to do that? What should they be cautious about, and what should they be excited about? Maybe one thing each, because we're almost reaching the end of our wonderful session.
Well, I've a long time been a globetrotter, even while basing myself in any part of the world, whether that's India or Europe or any part of the New World even. The first part is, and I know I may get hate mails from agents, do everything yourself. Okay. It may give you sleepless nights because no one has your interest in heart than you, right? No agent, no any organization in that sense will work your PR process as you, because you know yourself, your credentials, how to market yourself. Yes, some may give you a training how to sharpen your niche, but in terms of placing the paperwork and doing the paperwork, let me tell you, with life is very important. I'm sounding terribly British when I say that, but well, that's the gift of the colonials. Um, it's important to go through the paperwork, whether online, how to put it all together. Um, it was a personal choice because I always wanted to return back to the multicultural West, but also for students who are planning for the PR route. Let me just tell you, it does take a few years because um, if you're coming into Canada as a student, you're finishing your degree, you're getting a job, which is a post-work experience, which many universities in Canada enables you to do. A degree in Canada rather enables you to do. This is a uniquely migrant-friendly place. This is the ninth country of my stay, and I can tell you, compared to many countries, Canada is a breeze. Not without, and when I say that, I don't mean everything is put to you on a platter. You make your way through, but in terms of possibilities and immigrant friendly approach as well as multicultural approach, Canada has that in so many ways, in its cities, in its policies, in its programs, and within the universities even more so, right? So that is very important, and it's a progressive economy. It's a gender friendly economy. It's in many cities are very safe. Indeed, the city that I am based in, I feel grateful every day to be a part of, in terms of safety of the environment, safety and security of navigating through the city. So when you are actually taking that route of PR, it does come with led experience of being a student, then a worker, then doing the application process while in Canada. You will have to be patient. It takes a few years. And then as you get the PR, also, then it's 3 years into the citizenship route. At least you have to do your 1095 days of staying in Canada to apply for citizenship, indeed, if that's your aim in the larger route. But I would also want to say this as an anthropologist. I always like to mingle and know the mind of the country that I'm coming from. It is not good enough to keep on the professional urban level and say, oh, I'm doing economically well and that's good. Know the country, know the country's history, from the indigenous, very troubled history. No, every country has its own baggage of, complicities, complexities. Know it, know the history, visit museums. Even if you don't have to be a history buff always, it is about knowing the larger network that you are now a part of. Even though minority cultures, it is important. You are now a visible minority, right? It's important to know other visible minorities. You've never seen yourself in that way, but there you go. It's important to understand multiculturalism, understand the history, economy, place of the country, and if you are so very inclined, get involved in the politics of it, because that can only add to the larger spectrum. I'll leave it at that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Dasgupta. I have a question here, in fact, more than one, saying something about, is there an express PR and so on. I just want to say that, this is not the space where we want to go into the details of your getting a PR. For that, you need to get to counseling. You need to check out people who are experts on visas. Also, those things keep changing over time. The rules are a little bit different at the moment. The questions we should be asking if we are going abroad for study at the moment is about the vaccination acceptability, about how the work visa is going to play out. And those are things which are very fluid. If we say something now, it may not be relevant even after 1 month. So those are things you need to look out for and inform yourself. Your counselors at Leverage Edu are very well informed. You should DM us. You can find us on all the social media handles. You can call. There is also a 30-minute free counseling session that you can take at Leverage Edu. But I want to go back to what Dr. Dasgupta said about whenever you go and study abroad, remember that you become part of a network. You do not exist in isolation looking for Indian communities and Indian shops. Of course, it's good to have comfort food and be with people and speak languages that you are familiar with. But if you are doing study abroad, then join a wave, join a movement of being part of a larger global citizenry. Be informed, grow intellectually, emotionally, culturally. And with that, I want to say thank you very, very much, Dr. Dasgupta.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. It's a
You've
pleasure.
been wonderful. Thank you for being a friend, colleague, and thank you for being my guest on this session today. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you to Leverage Edu as well.
Thank you.